When can you retire? Do I have enough money? These are the questions that will plague you, whether you're in the FIRE movement, if you want to retire early, or really if you just ever want to retire. This little question will keep just creeping into your head. I don't care how many times you crunch the numbers, how many spreadsheets you've worked, you're going to question this little thought just keeps creeping into your brain. Maybe I should work one more year. We'll just, next year, we'll put one more year and we'll save a little bit more. We'll put another 100,000 in the stock market. We'll buy one more house. It's always easier to come up with an excuse to delay it, to postpone it, to just make sure you have enough, because nobody wants to run out of money 10, 15 years into retirement and have to re-enter the workforce. So we're going to talk today more about this concept of one more year, or one more house, or $10,000 more dollars, or one more piece of Tesla stock, whatever it might be that you're using to get to the finish line. We're going to talk about that.
Shut up and sit down.
You see, the psychological side of actually retiring early or retiring late or retiring on time or retiring at any point, the psychological side is just as hard as the effort you put in to amass enough money to actually be able to retire, whether it's through investing in the stock market or investing in real estate or starting a business or setting up passive streams of income from writing a book or a blog or whatever it might be. And the psychological part of being ready to just pull the plug and exit the workforce is one of the hardest parts that you're going to do. I think one of the reasons for this is not enough people put the actual thought into why they're retiring or what they're retiring to. I always say you can't just retire from something. If your whole reason to retire early is simply because my job sucks, that's not good enough, really. Everybody's jobs, not everybody, but most people's jobs suck. It's work. And so if you're just trying to exit the workforce because you don't like your job, you really have to put some time and energy and thought into what you're going to do when you actually retire. And this is the main question that I think people skip this step of. They figure out what their FIRE number is, how much money they need, how much it's going to cost, what the cost of living is going to be, how much their insurance is going to be, medical insurance, whatever it might be, without thinking, what do you want your life to look like? How do you want to fill your days? One of the things I've been challenging my wife as we get closer to this is I'm like, what does your perfect day look like? You know, we're kind of toying with where we want to live. Maybe we want to live in Europe, but closer to her family in Spain, or maybe closer to my family in Florida, or stay here in the Virgin Islands. So these are questions that we've been struggling with when we do get ready to retire full time. And I just ask her, what does your day look like? So then once you figure out what your perfect idyllic day of retirement looks like, ask yourself, what does the next day look like? And the next day and the next day? Is that a life? Is that a day you want to continually live over and over? Is that your perfect idyllic lifestyle? Can you afford to sustain it? Because maybe if your perfect day is renting a charter boat and going fishing for the day and that costs $600, maybe you can't afford to do that every day, or even maybe it's to play a different golf course every day. But when you start adding up those greens fees, you know, it can be a lot more expensive than you might think. So you really have to craft the retirement lifestyle that you want to retire into. One more thing to think about, if you don't have enough already on your thought plate, is that you might not want to live the same life for the next 20 or 30 years, especially if you're trying to retire early at 40 or 50 years old. Maybe you want to live in Spain for 10 years and then maybe you want to come back to America, or maybe you want to live on a Caribbean island like I am right now. And maybe you end up falling in love and you never want to leave, and it's the most expensive place you ever thought you could live. So you've got to be able to craft your life so that you can make changes and you can duck and weave and dodge and move and make the curvy winding road down, because maybe you don't want to just do the same thing forever. So, you know, I've invested in real estate and I know how much my real estate pays me. So I'm of a place where if I think the most expensive place that I might want to live, say in the Virgin Islands, say it costs me $75,000 a year to live here, well, I'm going to want to be sure that my investments are paying me over 100. I want to have a decent sized buffer there. If I'm going to live in Florida, maybe it costs me $50,000. So I want to know that my investments are paying me at least probably $80,000. If I want to live in Spain, it might only cost me $30,000. So I want to make sure that my investments are covering at least $50,000 or $60,000. But I want to also have the freedom to fluctuate in between some of these different areas. So I'm going to go off of my most expensive, and then I can always go to the cheaper places if money got tight or if I needed to. So I'm going to work off what's my most expensive life look like in retirement? And then I'm going to build in a buffer. And that's how I'm going to work to get to my FIRE number. There's lots of ways you can earn a little bit extra here and there. My wife could always do some online grading or online teaching, and I could keep doing the YouTube stuff and make a little bit of money on the side to help supplement things. But just the first step I think you really got to do is just figure out what does my life look like, and then crunch those numbers, because I'm telling you, the 1 more year syndrome, I was just on a Facebook group and they were all talking about inflation. It's a FIRE group. And there's a whole conversation of people just saying, well, I think we're going to put off 1 more year. We're going to wait 1 more year. I'm going to take my work down to 50% for 2 more years. And that will just keep creeping in more and more and more until you can 1 more year yourself for 5 or 10 years. And all of a sudden your early retirement, you just missed all these great years you could have been out traveling and enjoying the world. So just want to put some of these thoughts into your head, because if you haven't addressed what you're retiring to, it's really difficult to know what it's going to cost and how much you actually need. And the more uncertainty you have, the easier it is to get the 1 more year syndrome. So the more you're dialed in on what you want, the easier it is to figure out what that costs. And then the easier it is to pull the plug at the right moment and exit the workforce and start enjoying your life that you worked so hard to accrue all this money for. I hope this gives you something to think about. Leave me a comment down below if you have other ideas on how to avoid the 1 more year syndrome, or if you have different ways to calculating your retirement numbers. Let me know. I'm always interested to see what other people think, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done that, and give me a big old thumbs up if you like this video. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.